Hello once again, audience. It is me, your boy, TPT, coming at you not live and not from Twitch TV. So, I hope you guys are having a great day today. We are going to be doing our next beginner guides video. This one will be on DLCs, but obviously before we do that, I have to give the usual shout outs to the EU4 Casuals and the EU4 Australia Discords. Great places to hang out, great places to be. Obviously, the EU4 Australia Discord is heavily centered around Australia, whereas the EU4 Casual one typically tends to be around more of the North America and the European region. But obviously, you know, they do also do other stuff as well. Like EU4 Casuals currently has a Minecraft server, which I've been streaming on, run by Lunatic, who's one of my buddies. It's currently on the MC Eternal mod pack. They also do Hearts of Iron 4, Stellaris, and other Paradox games as well, just like my server, which you can find in the description down below as well. So, anyway, let's just jump into this. A big topic of conversation that comes up when you're talking about Europa Universalis 4 is the Paradox DLC policy. Now, I would say it's a very, not necessarily controversial, but it's a very polarizing debate. So, with Paradox, they typically release the game, and they will then proceed to release DLCs as the game progresses. And regarding this, I think that there is good sides and bad sides. The bad side is obviously it does end up costing a lot of money. I believe if we just have a quick look, I'm pretty sure the entire EU4 package is $300 or something right now. My first piece of advice is never buy that. It's just not worth it. I would actually suggest instead waiting for the various sales to come on. Like, as I record this right now, EU4 is 75% off until January 6th. So I would frankly never suggest purchasing a DLC from EU4 at full price. Unless of course you can easily afford to just throw away that much money, because typically they go on sale very regularly. Normally, I'll be about one DLC behind, which is, you know, it's not the end of the world if you ask me. However, I do actually even have the latest one right now, because EU4 did a anniversary. I can't remember what anniversary it was. It was for Paradox, but I can't remember like what year or anything. In which they had Emperor for 50% off. So I do actually have all of the DLCs right now, which is why I think that I am, you know, I'm capable of making these decisions, as again I have every single one of them. Some of that I agree with, some of it I don't. So anyway, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be walking through the top like 2 or 3 points of each DLC and my view on if it's necessary. Now, some of this information can be slightly outdated, as Paradox has been known to fiddle with a DLC in that. Like, for example, Common Sense used to be an S plus must buy, but since they fiddled with the development so that it's now you're able to increase development through the base game instead of via the DLC, it's lowered the priority of it a lot. And frankly, I think that was a necessary change, because not being able to develop without the DLC felt very extremely like pay to win to me, and many people agreed. It received a heavy barrage of negative reviews when it came out once people discovered that. So anyway, I'll just be going in order of this, as you can see, through the time. So going from Conquest of Paradise all the way through to Emperor. And I have been playing since Conquest of Paradise, in case you're wondering. I've played through every single one of these DLC. So anyway, the first one, again, as we said, is Conquest of Paradise. So this one has a couple features, as you can see there. It gives you random new world, new mechanics for Native Americans, and playing as a colonial nation. Of those 3 features that are mentioned there, I would say the only one which is any good is the play as a colonial nation. Because random new world is pretty much universally hated. No one uses it. It's just crap. Like, no one touches random new world. I feel like it's poorly optimized. It doesn't really work very well, and it's just not particularly fun. Expanded and new mechanics for Native Americans, it can be okay, but realistically, no one really tends to play in North America unless you're going for one of the achievements. And frankly, those aren't that fun either. Trust me, I've tried. And I also have friends who have gotten them, like the No Trail of Tears. My friends, they got it, and they said it was the most boring, painful experience of their life. Even more so than True Heir of Timor, actually. Well, it was more boring. Again, True Heir of Timor was a lot more intense for them, they said, but it was much more boring because you're just sitting there for a lot of it. And frankly, it's just not exciting. Okay, so next one is Wealth of Nations. Now, Wealth of Nations is a bit better. It does have some extra opportunities like privateers, canals, trade company mechanics. The trade company mechanics are pretty good. The covert diplomatic actions are like, they're alright. Privateers are just kind of meh. I don't really use privateers much at all. And the canals are a late game sort of thing. So if you typically don't play to late game, you won't need it. Res Publica, this one used to be actually significantly better. With the focusing your mill points, your diplo points, your admin points, but that has also since been moved to, I believe it was either Common Sense or to base game, or like you can have it in if you have like either of those DLCs, or I believe it may have just been moved to straight base game. I can't remember, but it is very fun if you're playing in the lowlands because it does do a lot of stuff for your Dutch republics. It also is good for merchant republics, general republics, dictatorships, which are republics, but they're not republics. So if you like playing as republics, which again is probably one of the most OP, I've said this before, but republics are probably the most OP government type in the game, purely because of the fact of the re-election mechanics. So republics are quite good. I would suggest getting that if you want to be a meta whore. Just saying. Art of War. Okay, this is probably with the nerfing of the Common Sense DLC. I would say Art of War is the best DLC in EU4. It is probably the best DLC in EU4, purely just because of how it changes a lot of different things. Like it does give you the revolution, the league wars, and that, which are pretty cool. It lets you upgrade for the Cynic, like that's pretty meh. But the important part is the greater influence over allies and subjects. The ability to change the ownership of provinces mid-war on that, and to be able to transfer province ownership and all that, is just so important. It's so handy because vassals, especially with the creation of the government governing capacity mechanic, has just made them really important. Also, I'm really sorry if you can hear Dad downstairs. I don't know what the hell he's doing, but I apologize. But yeah, so if I could pick one DLC out of any of these to get, it would be Art of War. It is probably the single most important one in the game. Okay, El Dorado. El Dorado has a few mechanics, of which the most notable would be the custom nation designer and the random nations. I would say they can be quite fun. There is a bit of limited replayability. I feel like it does get a bit boring after a while. But frankly, so does, it's not as fun as base game E4 after a while. As in like just like this sort of stuff, But it does definitely have an appeal to it. There is quite a lot of replayability in it. It still is very replayable. The Gold Fleets is pretty mad. The Treaty of Tordesillas only really matters if you're Catholic. And the Native American religion mechanics, again, if you're not playing in North America, which most people don't, it's no big deal. But if you did get it, it would have to be for the custom nations, because they're definitely by far and away the best part of the DLC. Okay, Common Sense. So Common Sense is another quite heavily European-focused DLC. This DLC, in case you're wondering, is the one that introduced the fort system as well as the multi-development system. It used to just be every province just had one type, which was just based, I think it was tax, actually. I think it was just base tax. It's been so long that I can't hardly even remember. But it was also the one that introduced development. It used to be a must-buy because of the fact that you could only increase your development with Common Sense. But now it's just sort of like a moderate tier DLC, because again it does add a lot for Europe, particularly around the HRE, like Protestantism and the free cities, and the subject interactions are pretty useful as well. Plus Parliament is good if you're playing something like England, who does start with a Parliament. So again, if you plan on playing around Europe, which most people do, it's definitely not a bad one Okay, Cossacks. I would say the Cossacks. Sorry, I did make some notes down here when I was reading through them, so I do have like a few general talking points. The Cossacks are pretty heavily focused around, so it's the Ottomans, the Muscovites, and also the Tengri. So the diplomatic feedback's pretty nice, I will say. The native policies, again, North America. The estates are pretty fun. I do love the Cossacks estate is probably the best in the game. Except maybe the Dhimmi is also really nice as well, because Dhimmi gives you permanent, they give you tech cost reduction if they're above 60% loyalty, which for the Dhimmi is very easy. So, because you can give them one particular modifier, which gives them an easy 20% loyalty and 5% influence, so you can very comfortably get them to that 60% cap. Either way, they're both very useful. They're very, very strong estates, so if you are good at your estates, I would suggest giving a bit of a look, see if you like it. Mare Nostrum adds a lot of, again, I would say pretty Europe-centric, but there is also quite a bit of focus on North Africa. So, if you don't know, if I recall correctly, Mare Nostrum, you can only raid coasts if you have Mare Nostrum. Otherwise, you're stuck with the, what is it, like 10%, minus 10% moral hit when your ship dies, and it's like pretty crap. So, if you're thinking of playing anything in here, or Pirate Nation, or the Knights, if you're thinking of playing any of those countries, Mare Nostrum is a must, because your economy is 90% raiding, particularly in the early game. In the later game, once you start forming like Andalusia and that, it's much better. But early game, raid. Particularly the Ligurian Sea. Oh, so much money from this tile right here. This thing has funded so many wars of my Tunisian campaigns and my Moroccan games. It's really nice. Anyway, so if you're playing in North Africa, I would definitely recommend it. It does also give trade leagues, which adds to a lot of the interest around Lubeck and that. Why it's not showing up? It's a bit strange. I don't know why that's not working properly, but yeah, it adds trade leagues and stuff like that. Rights of Man is a pretty decent one. It gives the great power status, which is mostly serving for a flexing purpose, but does also give you power projection and your great power interactions, which are quite useful. As long as you know how to use them properly. It also gives monarch personalities. So if you don't know, upon hitting 15, your heir or king will be given a first trait. Then it is 10 years, I believe, or 15, and then 25. They'll be given a third trait. So, and also it gives consorts, which are consorts are extremely useful because it stops you from getting into regency councils. Well, it doesn't stop you, but it means your chance of getting to regency council a lot less, and you can still declare wars with queen regions and consorts. So, it's a pretty nice one. Coptic nations have holy star mechanics, so if you ever plan on playing Ethiopia, you pretty much you really want rights of man. And also the Ottoman government type is also given via the Rights of Man DLC as well. So it's probably one of the best in the game, other than, I would say, the Prussian government, because the Prussian government is by far and away the most overpowered government type in the game. So it's very handy though. Anyway, Mandate of Heaven is pretty much this region right here. So if you plan on playing anything, I think the game might have just crashed. Well, anyway, if you plan on playing anything in this region, I would definitely recommend. Oh, there we go. I would definitely recommend, if you're playing anything in here, anything that is under a tributary status, get Mandate of Heaven. It's very fun. If you play in the area, Japan has so many more interactions with it. It really spices up the Asian region, but if you never plan on coming over to Asia as an Asian country, I would suggest you can pass over it. As you can see there, it gives, so it's basically the Ming, the Japanese, and all these little warlords up here as well. As well as like Mongolia and Noirat, and that also get a couple little bonuses from it. So Third Rome is Russia, okay? If you want to play Russia, It's a nice one to have. If you never played Russia, you're never going to care about this one. Although it does give a few minor bonuses to Byzantium as well, with the iconography, as well as the metropolitans, whatever you call them. I can't remember how to pronounce it. But they also benefit just Orthodox in general. So, it does have a bit of benefits, but pretty much all of it is focused on specifically Muscovy. Cradle of Civilization is actually a very nice one. Specifically for the army professionalism. It really makes you much stronger as a player. So if you're it's I personally see it as a direct buff to the player over the AI, because I found the AI typically doesn't really know how to make use of drilling, whereas the player always does. Well, almost always does if they've done their research. So it is a direct buff to the player. It also gives, some missionary actions and stuff, Janissaries. I've never been a big fan of Janissaries. I never really used them. So, take that as you will. And the exploit development, again, I don't really typically use it, but it can be very useful if you're doing hardcore achievement runs. Or like the Florywari No Bulls one can also use it as well. It's because of the ability to get some quick cash. But again, I never really exploit development. I think it's not good. Icta taxes. So if you're playing anywhere in Persia, I would definitely say it's a very nice one to have, because it gives a lot of spice to this region around here specifically. Because this is considered the cradle of civilization. If you don't know, Mesopotamia and that in and around the delta here and that. Anyway, I won't bore you with any more history. We'll just continue going on. Rule Britannia, it's pretty garbage, to be honest. It's really not that good, except for knowledge sharing. Is probably the one good part about it, and because knowledge sharing is super important with the DLC. If you're playing outside of Europe, and particularly in multiplayer specifically, knowledge sharing is a huge benefit to you. Naval Doctrine is pretty meh. Innovativeness is okay. It's nice to have, particularly in Italy, but again, outside of Europe, it's not really a big deal. Anglicanism is fun to play. It's actually quite a strong religion. Industrial Revolution is meh, and obviously New British Missions. So again, if you plan on playing anyone in the British Isles, it's definitely a really nice one to have. As well as if you play in Italy, it's pretty nice, and if you play outside of Europe in multiplayers, then it's a good one to have as well. Dharma, I'm relatively a fan of Dharma. It's decent. Specifically, the government reforms is by far and away the best part of it. Essentially, so you may have seen it, but over time you gain government reforms, and they give your country various modifiers. You can use them to change government type. You can also use them to get increased governing capacity. So you can choose to spend some of your reform progress to get governing capacity. Obviously, that does scale with the cost. Every time you spend it, I believe it gets 20%. Off the top of my head, more expensive. Trade company investments is pretty nice. It gives a lot of flavor to India, which is one of my favorite regions to play. So obviously, I'm going to be biased here, but I love what it does to India. The charter companies is pretty nice if you're playing Castile, England, France, or one of the colonizers, or like Portugal. The insult system is a bit of fun, but it's not really a big deal. The scornful insults, can I say, are very useful though. Free 10 power projection, decaying by 1 per year. Pretty handy to have. Monsoons, meh. Rework policy system is, it's alright. And the new use for colonists is completely useless, in my opinion. Next we have Golden Century. This one is garbage. I'd say just about everyone will agree this one is garbage. It does give like 1 or 2 cool things, but frankly it's garbage. Flagships is nice. Pirate Republics can be fun. The rest of it's pretty garbage. If you don't have this one, you can easily have fun playing in Iberia and not have this one. Like this one, it does give flavor, but like no one likes it at all. So if you never got this DLC, wouldn't be a big issue. Lastly, but not least, of course, with the most recent DLC, we have the Emperor DLC. This one gives a lot around Europe. It's very heavily focused on Europe, as you can see. European mission trees, cardinals, so Catholicism, Holy Roman Empire. Not technically just focused on Europe anymore, but still mainly focuses on Europe. If you guys don't know, you can actually now become revolutionary outside of Europe, but typically it still spawns there. Tier Defenders of the Faith is, it's pretty cool. It's alright, but like, don't really care. Hussite is fun if you're specifically playing as Bohemia, otherwise don't really care. And Hegemonies is the one feature which does affect pretty much the entirety of the map. So essentially, if you have over 1 million troops, 250 heavy ships, or over 1,000 ducats a month in income, you can get some very, very, very powerful modifiers which will help you to just grow even faster. But the trade-off is that it makes it much harder to get allies and such as well. And if you're in multiplayer, you might get shit on, because if you lose your hegemony, well, some power costs, some other good stuff. You won't appreciate losing a hegemony. So keep in mind, if you white peace as a hegemon, I don't know if this is still the case, but if you white peace as a hegemon, you lose your status. So be careful of that one. Haven't had it happening personally, but I've seen it happen. It's a problem of exploits in multiplayer. Normally it's banned though, obviously, because it's complete BS. But either way, Emperor is, I would say it's a decent DLC. It's definitely mid to high tier, specifically around Europe, and the hegemonies is really nice. But don't buy it for full price. Don't buy any of these DLC for full price. Just wait for them to go on sale. They go on sale pretty regularly. I normally pick up like 1 or 2, depending on how many I need. And yeah, so I've just, I've put like over 2,500 hours into this game. So, when you think about it, like every dollar I've spent, you're probably looking at least about 30 hours of content there for every dollar that I've spent. And I'm still playing it, I'll probably still keep on playing it even after they stop releasing DLC, because it's a very well-made game. Obviously there's flaws in it and everything, but let's just say that it's better than League of Legends client. So, anyway, that's been my my review of DLCs. So again, the one I would focus the most on is Art of War, then everything else. Art of War is easily the best DLC, always has been, and it always will be. So I would always suggest that one being your very first purchase, if anything, if you ever do decide to get a DLC. Keep in mind as well that if you're playing multiplayer, the only DLC that matters is the host DLC. So if you have 0 DLC and the host has all the DLC, your game will be hosted as if it has all the DLC. However, if you host and you have 0 DLC and your friend joins and he has all the DLC, then you will be hosted as 0 DLC game. So make sure to have a friend who has all the DLC and then get them to host every time, and enjoy the perks of playing the new DLC without spending a dime for it. Anyway, guys, hope you have enjoyed. If you did, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Be sure to hit that fat like button so that YouTube algorithm will support me so I can feed my family. Join the Discord. If I know I mentioned it already, but I've been really trying to push that one. Been doing some updates and stuff. We have got our latest round of updates, which will be coming out soon, which I am looking forward to. Also, I stream 8 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time. Normally, it's Saturday through till Tuesday. However, because I don't have any work until the 11th, until like I think it's like the, 1 second here, until about the 14th of January, I pretty much have been streaming like most days, like 6-7 days a week. So be sure to check it out as well. Again, all the links will be down in the description below. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. And be sure to give me your own thoughts, comments on my, what if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, that's what that comment section's for. So I hope you guys do have a wonderful evening, or morning, or day, or afternoon, or night. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.